It looks like we're live now. So welcome to the OpenFlip 2016 Winter Edition. And this is week 0 where we get our tools set up and we say what our fears and scary monsters under the bed are.
What is this with 0?
Because I'm a computer scientist, Nancy.
Arrays start with 0.
It really starts next week. We actually, there's a lot of people that are still signing up, so there's some mechanics I'll deal with at the end of this podcast, or not podcast, video cast. But I want to introduce our guests. We have Alan Levine, who I've done a lot of work with over the last year on various projects, and Kate Baker, who I've known for 2.5 years now through our Flip Class adventures, and Nancy White, who I met last year as well. So what I'm going to do while I try to tweet out that we're live is I'll go Alan, then Kate, then Nancy. Just introduce yourself quickly.
Hi there. I'm Alan. That's all I'm supposed to do. I'm from my house in Strawberry, Arizona, and I've been in ed tech for, God, a long time now, but met people like Nancy through blogs and other crazy things, and the internet's been very, very good to me.
Betty.
You're up, Kate.
I am Kate Baker, 9th grade English teacher in New Jersey. I've been flipping for about 4 years now. I'm live from my classroom during my lunch break because I never take any time off. Always learning. And I met Ken at FlipCon last 2 years ago. This is why I teach English, and I don't.
2 FlipCons ago.
I can't keep track of numbers or dates or time. It's all relative. But no, just that wonderful, wonderful community of Flip Class teachers that it's like a family reunion when we go to FlipCon in the summertime. You know, it's getting to see everybody again and re-energize and reconnecting. So I'm excited to bring more people into the fold.
That's the evil plan.
Kate, I am your mother.
I've been flipping out for most of my life, so I'm not a classroom educator. I'm sitting here in cloudy Seattle, Washington, and I am one of those people who does lots of different things and likes to find the dots that connect them. And so, to me, there's this really interesting intersection between the flipped classroom movement and what I'm trying to do with group process work, which is stop having people stand up in the front of the room and talk at each other. Instead, engage the intelligence of every single person in the room. And I'm hoping that, the flipped classroom movement will inform the next generation so they're not sitting there passively waiting for the answer of what they're going to do to get an A or get the job or get the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, I just got, actually, one of the participants said, how can he interact and post questions? So I just let him know. So anyone who's watching, you should send a tweet using the hashtag OpenFlip. And I bet you Nancy has a pen and paper right there, and she's going to do it because she always does that.
Actually, I was opening my my Twitter so that I could search the hashtag.
But I'll go through the classic questions. So a lot of people don't get why should they blog as an educator. So maybe I'll just throw that out there and get that conversation started.
They really shouldn't do it, Ken. It's a terrible idea.
It's bad. This is why I invited Alan.
Yeah, reading and writing, they're the people. I blog because I want to share what I'm doing. My blog is all about what I'm doing with my students in my classroom, and it's also a way for me to kind of think out loud, but on the screen, about what I'm doing, how I'm doing, and how I could make it better. So it's that sharing piece, but it's also that reflection and hope to, I'll get somebody to help me make it better and give me some feedback and suggestions on it.
That's a perfect phrase. The think out loud. One of the early influences I remember was Cory Doctorow wrote this blog post in like 2000 or 2002, and it was my blog, my outboard brain. And
yeah.
So, and that idea of thinking out loud is very in line with what I do. It helps me think actually by writing out my ideas, and I get compulsive. Like if I get something in my head that I really want to work out, I have to like stop everything and spend this time blogging, and a lot of people get wrapped up in their audience or who their readers are, and my primary audience is totally me. It's very selfish, and so I write for myself, and over time it's become this incredible record of not like just accomplishments, but things that went bad, people I met, and so it's a huge resource for me, but it's just become part of the way I operate.
Yeah, no, I could just say ditto, ditto, ditto. And somebody said, well, Nancy, you think by talking. I don't sit there and have deep thoughts all by myself. I mean, if I did that, all I think about is chocolate. What happens is when I'm engaged in a conversation with someone else, I actually understand what I know better, and I understand what I don't know better. Otherwise, it's just this kind of rut. I can easily fall into a rut of whatever I'm doing. So for me, blogging became that thinking out loud. And someone says, but I am not a person who thinks by talking. I'm one of those people who sits and listens and then goes home and thinks deeply about it, and then something comes out. I'm going like, blogging can work for you too. So it's not just for those people who process through, verbally. I can tell, Ken, you've actually invited 3 people who, if I had to bet money, are people who process verbally, whether it's through their fingers or through their mouths. Mm-hmm. But we may say things before we actually realize what we're saying.
Well, you know me there.
Did I just say that? But actually, that was the learning moment. That was the thinking moment. And I think that's something incredibly powerful about being connected to other people. So yes, it's thinking out loud. But for me, I blogged initially in the late 90s, and it didn't get anywhere. I was doing it as part of a project with clients to kind of share resources. And, frankly, it was boring. And then I started blogging again. Maybe it might have been 2002. And there's this guy in Montreal named Seb Paquette, who I'd met at a blog function. In fact, I think it might have been the same one where I met Alan in Vancouver, BC. And he posted on his blog post a welcome to the blogging world to Nancy White. Aww. And I could not believe how many people actually had been following my work, because I had a static web page where I wrote things and published things. And the blogging, the medium, the nature of how it's constructed technologically and, up here, whatever that word is, all of a sudden it revealed to me I had this network that I didn't even know I had. And that was earth-shaking, folks. That was life-changing. Cool. Because you realize you have access to this much larger brain or sets of brains, ideas, and perspectives, because I think it's real easy. Like, today if you just hang out in your Facebook group, you're going to be hanging out with the people most likely. But an open, outward-facing tool like blogging brings you different perspectives, people who disagree with you, people who agree with you, people who challenge you, people who, kind of coddle you. You get the whole 9 yards. And that was very powerful. And I think it's something missing today in a lot of today's social media engagement.
Yep.
I like that notion of the openness with blogging, because it's also about, like, you're putting yourself out there and you don't know what kind of change or impact you're going to have on somebody else. And I've run into a couple of people at conferences, and they'll recognize my Twitter handle, and they'll be like, oh, I read your blog, your stuff was so helpful, like, I really needed to read that day.
Or you're an idiot!
Oh, I was working through the same problem, or they disagree with me and they challenge me, and it's like, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about this more. And if I had kept it closed and never hit that publish button, those opportunities would never have happened. So that chain reaction, that synergy, it's wonderful, that bit of unknown about it, that you just don't know what's going to happen. That's exciting.
Yeah, and I'll say, we are all people who have gotten that spark from it by doing it and being it in a while. When you're starting out, the thing that probably doesn't help is a bunch of people telling you how great it is. Right. And so generally with that and bringing people into Twitter, they have to trust you a little bit to jump into this strange venue. But hopefully you find the things that you can do in your OpenFlip that give people some of that buzz back. And I think you only get it from experience.
And something you mentioned, Alan, there, where you were saying that you're writing for yourself. Actually, George Koros is really good. I'm going to shout out to him right now because I said I was going to. He's constantly posting retweets of someone who just created their blog, and please retweet this and please put a comment. And I put a comment on this person's blog saying, just write for yourself, write whatever you need to, and if people come and see your stuff or comment on your stuff, that's just bonus. And if it happens, that's awesome. But I find myself going back, and I've been blogging less than probably all three of you. I know definitely Alan and Nancy and probably Kate, maybe 2.5 years. And I haven't blogged really since April, so I should not talk so much. But I found just with the few posts that I have, going back and seeing what I did 2 years ago is really, really interesting when I'm preparing for a new semester and a new year.
Yeah, so you can probably have at the top of your mind what you did last week or last month.
Yeah.
But, I can tell you what I was doing on February 3rd,
ago.
2006. I don't remember.
And when you go into Alan's blog and you go down that tunnel, because there's I don't know how many blog posts now, you can get just lost. I like hitting the random button on blogs like Alan's because there's so many blog posts. You hit something random and you go back to 2004.
Then you find my mistakes.
I was going to say, do people know, I'd say hit the random button. Is that something that people know what that means?
No. So Alan's got this cool tool on his site where you can hit random, and it will show you a random blog post of all of his blog posts across time. It's fun.
How'd you do that?
There's a blog post about it.
Alan's a wizard.
There's actually a thing on WordPress you can do. I think if you put _random after a URL, I think that's how it works. So if you put !random after your blog URL, I think WordPress does it.
Okay. I'm going to move on to Twitter, but I'll say one thing. Kate, you should check out Alan's blog and vice versa. But one thing I like about what Alan does with his blog is, and I try to tell my students this for what they should create in their blogs, is don't just tell me what you did. I want you to tell me why you did it, and I want you to tell me how you did it. And this is something that's really, really good with what Alan writes on his blog, especially for techno nerd geeks like me that like to dive into WordPress mechanics, is he tells us why he's doing it, he tells us what he did, and he tells us how he did it in gory detail. And many of the blog posts say, yeah, those that aren't interested in all these details, you can just skip down to the next post.
I
like that. Defend yourself.
No, I'm not defending it. I mean, one of my heroes in the why of doing this is John Udell, who did this thing long ago that I totally buy into, that he talked about this concept of narrating the stuff we do. And so, when I talk to people, like, we focus so much in education on producing something at the end. Like for Kate, it's the final essay. Often it's the presentation, and we never keep all the track of all the stuff that it took to get there. And so, I paraphrase this thing like, what if people actually did this ongoing narration of how they did things, of how they solved problems? Like when I have a plumber come to my house, like, I don't know how he figures things out. Like, does he go through case examples? Does he do trial and error? Plumbers just fix your toilet. They don't really tell you their thinking process. And so we're not used to revealing that.
Yeah. I'll let Kate defend herself later. One thing that Kate does a lot of good stuff on effective feedback through posting through Google Docs and a lot of other tools with her students, so they have constant feedback while they're working. It's really cool. But she'll talk about it later because she's busy talking to someone. So let's switch over to Twitter.
So actually, I'm just going to do this. Did I get everybody's URL right? I didn't put Ken's. Oh my God, I didn't put Ken's.
Okay, people can find me. That's all right. Mine's kenbauer.me.
Good job.
Kate was busy talking to someone. I was going to switch to Twitter. Yep, it's okay, Kate.
Wait. Everybody say hi. I got, this is Tim Daly, my tech director.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Tim Daly, tech director.
We're
amazing, wonderful. I can't do what I do without having support in my district and without him as my cheerleader.
Awesome.
Lets me do everything that I do. I couldn't be here with all of you today, so.
We're always impressed with all the great work she does, so it's not very hard to support her.
Hey.
And actually, this ties in, Kate, to what's happening this week, is where people are all trying to get their blogs set up, get their Twitter set up. And some of us that have been using this for so long, we forget about the details. I see this every semester with my students. They're publishing their blogs and they don't show up, and they don't show up, and they're like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, you have to confirm your email address with WordPress, and that's why." And so there's all these things I forget, and the message is, ask for help. Find a tech geek friend who will help you do these little tiny things. Set up your Twitter account, set up your blog. There's little details that we forget. I know with Agora project in the summer, we forgot to warn them to turn off all the alerts in Twitter when you first create your Twitter account, and their email was getting spammed all the craziness.
Yeah.
And we forget that.
I think you can't cover all the grounds, and some of the expectations is that we can explain everything.
No, you have to live it.
I generally like to have my students and victims learn through things like that experience.
Yeah.
And then they learn how to solve problems.
And when it comes down to the classroom and flipped class, I mean, I want my students just to do it and suffer through it and feel the pain and learn.
And to develop the skill of being a technology steward, which isn't necessarily always the tech person, but everybody has some role in technology stewardship.
Excellent.
I like that. Yeah, I like that phrase, the steward. I like that.
Yeah.
I like this. We got 4 invites now.
And if you have to do this for your parents, you become very good at it. So, if you're like, middle age, you guys are young. Alan and I are up there. If you have to do it for the elders in your family, then you develop really great technology stewardship skills.
I refuse to do family tech support. I'm bad.
So I'm going to throw this question out. Luis Miguel is helping me organize this course and kind of coordinate it or wrangle people. He took the version a couple of years ago. So he has this question I'm translating on the fly. If I lose, a lot about flipped classes is flipping, I think, more about the control, that students now have more control of their learning and the teacher releases that control. And Luis's question is, if I lose that control, aren't I just going to be replaced because I'm not needed anymore?
No, are you kidding?
So jump on that.
Oh, man. So, control is, first of all, a delusion. That's the starting point.
Exactly.
If you have tamped down the energy of everyone in the room, you're actually doing a destructive act, not liberating learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to rethink about what control means. I think control means making sure that the classroom doesn't explode, and that the learners move towards the learning objectives. But control, if my idea of control is that I have devolved as much power as possible to the learners so that they are in as much control as possible of their learning, because that is motivating. And so I'm controlling, decontrolling. So I've got something to control, and that's the flipping. That's the design piece. That's the thinking in advance about what kinds of structures enable people to be liberated into their learning. That design is a form of control. So if you want to, be worried about it, design well. That's your controlling power. And then let go.
I might ask Luis or whoever is interested to think about maybe one of their most exciting experiences as a learner and ask, were they controlled?
Right. I think that's always important.
Going back to the design of what Nancy says, I look at it with flipping like you're an architect of learning. So, we love to do the stage on the stage. You're no longer that. You're now a facilitator of learning. But what does that really mean? So I liken it to being an architect, that you design the plans and the overall kind of scheme of it, but then your students are they're the contractors, they're the laborers, they're the heavy lifters, they're the ones that are doing the building, the decorating of whatever, the metaphoric house. So architect of learning, or conductor of learning of like an orchestra, but and we talk a lot about my students about autonomy, and it's not just like freedom to do whatever you want whenever you want when you're learning. Whee! Chaos.
Autonomy with responsibility.
Yeah, it's about making smart choices. It's about, prioritizing, using a hierarchy. Okay, what's the best use of my time to get X, Y, and Z done? It's not just willy-nilly, let's go learn and be free. Like, it's not so, I don't know what the word, maybe organic? and there is some organicness to it because you're allowing growth, but it's not controlled. But there is still a little bit of structure within it.
I have a colleague, Jeff McClurkin at University of Mary Washington, and his approach that I love is he wants the students to be uncomfortable but not paralyzed. So there's this zone of where students have to figure things out or a little bit unsure, and then they learn themselves, but you don't want them to get stuck.
I think Nancy has a word for that.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean fascipulation?
that confusiasm.
Oh, confusiasm.
Does Kate know our word?
No!
Kate, I live in the world of confusiasm.
I love words. I love it.
So it's that state between being confused and enthusiasm.
Oh, that's where learning happens.
Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't happen in the land of certainty and comfort.
Yes, correct. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We talk about this with swimming because I also coach swimming, and how are you going to grow? And I actually use the sports metaphor often with my 9th grade students because they get it. Like, you can't become faster, better, stronger at what you're doing if you don't work out. Like, you have to get some muscle soreness in order to be stronger. So you got to do a little bit of heavy lifting to get your body stronger. And the same thing goes for your mind. You got to do some heavy lifting and learning. You can't always be so easy. There's got to be some struggle. And then from the struggle will produce the growth.
And I think for a lot of the people that are starting this 8-week adventure of a course, it's a struggle for them. A lot of them haven't created a blog at all. I see them create their Twitter accounts. They're still eggs, or they're not, and they don't get how to use these tools yet. And I think the only way to do it is to feel that you're going to struggle through it. I made a point last summer. I was teaching people about Twitter, and I always say, and I said this with you, Kate, last year. I reviewed our talk last year, this session, that my friends say Twitter's a waste of time, and I say, well, Twitter's really fast for me, because if I use Twitter, I can ask a question, and Kate's going to answer me like in 32 seconds, or it's going to be Alan or Nancy. And George Cora said, but hold on, Ken, the way you use Twitter is very different to the way people who are just starting Twitter use Twitter. And I think that's very important. What George was saying is you got to just grow through these tools and use them the way that it works for you.
Well, the Twitter thing, using Twitter, part of that is that community aspect. So if you first join Twitter and you don't have any followers, you're not following anybody, so of course Twitter's not going to work. You're not going to get an answer if you tweet something out.
Right.
So, if you're new to Twitter, I highly recommend, follow you, Ken, because you're running the class.
Follow Google Guacamole because Laura shares awesome tips about how to use Twitter, and I'm sharing that in our group.
It's a really good strategy.
When you go to who to follow, though, you get all those suggestions of who to follow, and go through the list of who you're following. Because if you have 4,000 people that you're following, that's 4,000 potential people that whoever is new to Twitter can find and connect with.
Exactly.
And a really good a strategy is just study someone for a little while. Just check out who Nancy's talking to, and then you sort of see what kind of conversation she has, and then you find people she's connected with that you probably wouldn't have come across.
Yeah, I do that often. And some people that aren't used to Twitter, they're following people all the time, where it's also the importance of following a hashtag, which is
a persistent search for a word, not even a hashtag.
Right.
Yeah. It's like you want enough of the people in the core of your network so you feel comfortable, and you want enough intersecting or peripheral networks for the diversity. Because if you're just going to go internally, you're not going to get the maximum value. So it's always thinking about the edges of things. Anytime you explore a new tool, think about what's the core, what's the periphery, and where do I want to start my dance, and where does it want to go? Or Kathy, Kate, it's a Kate. I got that far. It's Kate. This idea of a metaphor to play with is often very useful. But if you just stick at the core, you're not going to get maximum value. I think that's a pretty reasonable rule of thumb.
And I think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Al.
When getting people started with Twitter, if you can come up with something for them to do right away, that is more than just like say hello to everybody or find 5 people to follow. Like give people a scavenger hunt or some task. Even the mundane, like tell us what you're eating, Kate. And so
here comes the tweet. I'm looking. It's up here.
And I mean, what needs to happen is people need to get that conversational aspect of Twitter and the replying and the banter. Sometimes people might feel like, oh, I have to sound like like I know what I'm talking about. And then kind of finding your personality. Whether you want to be someone who just cracks jokes, someone who just tweets funny pictures, or someone who asks a lot of questions.
Yeah. I'm going to just interject because we're running up on time if someone has to bail out at the half-hour mark. I don't know, Kate's killing her lunch.
Well, I can eat if you don't mind me being rude. I just got to be done by 45.
Okay.
My next class comes in.
Can I have some pretzels?
Sure.
Pass the bag, Kate.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's just, there's anything
Snyder's. You rock. Snyder's are the best pretzels in the world.
And
go
about
to Hanover, Pennsylvania, and take the tour of the Snyder's factory. It's amazing.
So one thing that's interesting for Twitter is I've met all of you on Twitter before I met you in person. With Kate, it was probably just before I went to that FlipCon in 2014. Alan, I was watching his work with Connected Courses, and I was stalking what him and Brian were doing at Thompson Rivers University and following them and poking him with questions. And then that led to a whole story, and you can check out stories.cogblog.com and see my story about that conversation. And Nancy, I met through meeting Alan through this Utica Agora. And I know I sent Nancy messages before because I bought her book, and I said, hey, I bought your book, Nancy White, and I'm reading it. She's like, who the hell's this guy? But then later we meet. So these conversations that you start with people and honestly asking them about their work or asking for help lead to conversations that lead to, friendships.
That's what I remember reading when Twitter was starting. Clive Thompson has this thing called social proprioception, and proprioception is the physical thing we have in a room of people where we have an awareness of proximity because we pick up body cues and things like that. And so Twitter provides this awareness of what people are doing or interested in. So when we meet them, we don't have to start out with the mundane, tell me what you're doing, where you're from. It's like, oh, Kate, I saw you, you just started to say, how was that trip to Iceland,
Right.
Because I know what you've been up to. And so it escalates the potential for those conversations.
Well, we have 3 viewers. I know Miguel X is watching us because he said something, and Brian Bennett's watching as well because he says he's tweeted out that Snyder's are the best pretzels.
Oh.
Snyder's, they are, yeah. I have a story about the Snyder Pretzel Factory. Hey, Brian, we miss you. Come back to DS106.
Brian's the, I guess, the board of directors chair for the Flip Learning Network, and he decided to take the course, so he's started blogging and contributing to the course. So
I'm a big fan of Brian.
It's going to be a good mix of people. What else did I have to mention here? Something got stuck in my brain. There's Nancy's book.
Your sponsors.
Stuck.
I am stuck, but what else can you add about how to just jump in and not be full of fear with this new stuff?
So, I have a friend who does this really lovely thing for 1 week at the beginning of every year. He doesn't do his regular work, and he spends an entire week investigating a topic that's new to him.
Hurry.
And by the way, I'll find his URL and I'll share it because he's just recently posted about this year's experiment. And this idea that there's a question I want to answer in the world, there's something I'm curious about. By setting yourself on this quest of a question, it's really then much more entertaining, fun, enjoyable, relaxing, rather than, oh my God, I've got to learn this tool. Because for goodness sake, you're not doing it because, well, most people don't just want to learn another tool. Some of us are freaky like that. But explore a reason, try an experiment, and then reflect on the experiment. And it's amazing. You won't even know that you've learned how to use the tool because you're reflecting on how you use the tool and what value it brought to your life, be it blogging or Twitter. It doesn't really matter. But have a quest.
That's what Dean Shareski, Alec Kurz do this thing called a learning project. So they have their students figure out something they want to learn, like how to play guitar or how to ride a horse, and they use the tools to write their learning process. It's
That's
brilliant.
all, like Genius Hour and project-based learning. I love inquiry and that notion of being curious and having the freedom and time to go do that. And if you're not, if you're in a structured, highly structured classroom, when do you have the time to go do that? So it would be wonderful if it was more than just like, 1 week a year, or for teachers during the summertime when we're off, or during breaks, to be able to have that freedom and autonomy to go investigate those things. My blog actually started from a grad class. I'm wrapping up, I'm coming to the end of my journey with this degree of a master's in instructional technology, and the professor for the class said, okay, go make a blog, you're going to do these things, here's a bunch of tools. He would show us the tools, introduce them to us, and then he was like, okay, go create something, figure out how to put this into your class. And I was like, oh, okay. I love that. Ate it up because it gave me a direction to go in, like, okay, here, see this. But then it didn't tell me what to do or how to do it. I was able to figure that out for myself. So being willing to play, get in the sandbox, and explore is always a good tactic for learning.
And learning tools, even this Google Hangout, a lot of people haven't used it at all, and then we get them on, and they just love it. This happened with the Agora project in the fall, where the first sessions were just us hanging out, and then it took about 4 weeks before we got people to come in that were participants in the course to join us online. So shout out to all the people taking the course. Don't be afraid to jump in and join us online, because this is fun. My mental note to myself is don't forget to copy and paste the chat we have on the side here, because as soon as I close this, it goes away. We learned that.
Well, the chat's back, thank God.
Yay. Good.
I'm getting you to Steve Crandall's blog, too. I have to find that.
Nancy's giving us all sorts of notes. She's good at that. All right. Well, why don't we wrap this up here? Any last comments from anyone before we close up? We're doing this every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. my time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern, and Thursday evenings 7 p.m. my time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern. I've got a lineup. I think Brian's going to join us. Justin's going to join us. I'm not sure who else is going to join us tomorrow evening, but anyone's welcome. Anytime you want to jump on the wagon and hang out with us and talk Flip class. This week's about tools, and then we go through the 4 pillars of Flip, the FLIP, and then we finish up with planning your first Flip lesson. And the last session is just kind of a group hangout and how was the course? A wrap
Party. It's a party.
Yeah. We have 77 people registered so far. You can
Wow.
You can go to various domains. aulainvertida.org will eventually redirect you. The openflip.com will eventually redirect you. If you're listening to this, the link should be on the YouTube link below to the course. If you're interested in joining, people can still join all week and probably into next week. But if you come at the last week and say, can I join and get credit? No, it's not going to happen.
Ken's all over the internet with this.
I will, for anyone who's taken this, there's people from the Tec de Monterrey that are officially registered and they get credit for it officially. But anyone else, if you actually do the work, I will write a letter and a little certificate and say that I recommend you get 40 hours of professional development credit for this.
Ken will also come over to your house and he'll grill you some carne asada.
I will. We have good parties in my house. Kate has to make it down here still.
Definitely.
All right, so any wrap-up messages from you folks before I hit the stop broadcast button?
No, just I mean, we can talk about Twitter and blogs and things, but I mean, the real fun part of this and the powerful thing is like Ken introduces me to Kate, and so Bing diggers the network again.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I wasn't following either one of you, and just saw too that Alan, our blogs have a similar theme to it. We both have the commonality of the dog.
Streams are crossing.
We're gonna get along great, Kate.
I told you.
I'm excited. Meeting Nancy and everything. Again, it's always about the people. So, a shout out to the old hashtag Better Together.
Yes.
That's what we are. Better together.
Shout out to Andrew and Cheryl.
So,
And you,
Ken,
Nancy?
don't forget to copy the chat. That's my last word.
All right.
I always forget.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm going to hit the copy paste on the chat before I close this. I'm going to stop the broadcast, and please check your emails. I'll be spamming you via emails with MailChimp, and if you have any questions, contact Ken via smoke signal, email, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever works for you. All right, thank you all for joining us today, and I'll hit the stop broadcast button for now. See you soon.